Hey guys, it's Miss Allison and I hope you're doing well today. Let's take a look. So we're either on Wednesday, April 28th or Thursday, April 29th. If you are here on the Thursday, April 29th date, we do have help desk today, so stop by if you need it. I could not be here on Wednesday, so recorded this lesson and are giving you guys some extra work time if you need it, okay? It wouldn't be English class without starting with a meme. All right, let's look at our goals for today. So our learning target is I can understand a poem by analyzing its form and symbols. Our success criteria is I have a different meaning of a poem. All right, so we're going to first start with our poem of the day. This is The Red Wheelbarrow by William Carlos Williams. So much depends upon a red wheelbarrow, glazed with rainwater beside the white chickens. I love this simple, what a great image that it paints. All right, so if we were in class, you would be doing a pair deck right now, and we would answer this question. What do you know about poetic form? What do you know about symbols? So take a moment, answer those questions in your mind right now to yourself. So poetic form is something we've talked about a little, but it really is the idea that every poem looks and takes a bit of a different shape, like sometimes literally, but also metaphorically, okay? So when you think about a poetic form, it's any time that a poem follows or does not follow a particular set of rules. It could be number of lines, length of stanzas, rhyme scheme, subject matter. All of those things have to do with the form or shape of our poems. There's lots of options. So like haiku is one I'm sure you've heard about. Sonnet is one I'm sure you've heard about, right? There's lots of them out there that you will get to study more in your asynchronous work today. So we talked about this in class and we said which one of these is a poem, and you voted on the first day we did poetry. We found out that they all are poems, right? Like this is all three examples of poems. So if we went here first, we talked about how this is like, in my mind, when I think of a poem, this is what I think of, something more classic. So there are stanzas, there are a certain number of lines, I can't say that, lines in each stanza. It looks like the lines are similar in length, right? It all is pretty uniformed. Then we move to example number 2. So this is one that we read for poem of the day today. We have 3 words, 1 word, 3 words, 1 word, 3 words, 1 word, 3 words, 1 word. And you can see how it's this author chose to space it out. Still has potentially the same impact as this one, right? Still paints that image, gives us theme, all of that, but a very different way to format this poem. And then number 1, one of my favorite examples, the grasshopper. So there's lots going on here. There's like capitals, not capitals, punctuation is everywhere. The spacing is crazy, right? And it just looks like a blob of letters on the page. But if we really went in and dug deeper and analyzed this and looked for poetic devices and all of that, you would see that this is actually taking shape of a grasshopper hopping, and it's all about the grasshopper taking that risk to leap. Now, not maybe the most recommended form of poetry as you're writing your own, however, an interesting thing to think about. Okay, so that's poetic form, friends. Next is symbolism. We talked a lot about this in class. So when we have an object or a thing that represents more than itself, that's going to be symbolism. So if we were in class, I'd have you guys have a discussion about what each one of these could symbolize. So we have an apple, an umbrella, and some fall leaves. So take a moment to yourself. Think about what they could represent bigger than themselves. Okay? We have talked about these 2 words before. We have connotation is what you feel, and then denotation is the dictionary definition. This has a lot to do with connotation. So when I see an apple, I associate these things with it, or I know it could represent these things. Okay, so let's start with the apple. For here, I know apples are often associated with education, so perhaps this could resemble someone's education or the institution of learning, right? That is a lot bigger than just a piece of fruit. Okay, umbrella, so I use it like when it's raining or snowing or something. That's true, but maybe this could also represent something like protection, comfort, shelter, right? So a little bit bigger than itself there. And finally, we have some fall leaves here. They are beautiful on the ground for like 2 days and then, turn to dust, right? But we could say here that it could be representing the idea of change, right? It could be that cycle of life, like towards the end, because it's towards the end of our calendar year that this happens. It could be new beginnings. There's lots of things that it could symbolize. So as you're reading, look for those opportunities for symbols within your poems and what you think they could mean. All right, friends. Take a quick screen break. Go ahead and pause it right now, please. We're going to come back in a couple minutes and look at some poems and apply what we just learned in them. But shake it out. Go take a break real fast. All right, welcome back. I hope you actually did take a break and maybe had some cereal or something in between here. Okay, so this one is our first poem. It's called Autumn. The audio is linked if you need it there. But this is going to be the first thing we're looking for symbols and then form. So I'm going to just read it out loud once like we did in class and then get a little bit deeper. So autumn. A touch of cold in the autumn night. I walked abroad and saw the ruddy moon lean over a hedge like a red-faced farmer. I did not stop to speak, but nodded, and round about were the wistful stars with white faces like town children. Interesting. Okay, so when I read it first, I noticed that it is just one stanza. I noticed that it follows pretty like normal rules of English, nothing too crazy here. So form, I think, is pretty simple here. It's just kind of one continuous thought. I think that's important to note. Next, I'm going to read it again. I'm going to look for symbols or anything that could maybe stand for more than itself. Autumn. A touch of cold in the autumn night. I walked abroad and saw the ruddy moon lean over a hedge like a red-faced farmer. I did not stop to speak, but nodded, and round about were the wistful stars with white faces like town children. Whew, that one got me a little tripped up there. There's some good alliteration in there, right? Okay, so when I'm looking specifically for symbols in this one, you would drag and drop if we were in class, but you can point them out on your screen as you're watching. There's a couple ones that are popping out to me. I think autumn is a big one, right? And we talked about that a little bit already. This is the season of change. This is the time of either, you could say, new beginnings or endings, depending on how you view it. I think that we have the moon here is a really big one. The moon is also personified here because we use a simile to say like a red-faced farmer, but the fact that we are comparing it to that human-like thing, we could also say is personification. But we need to think about what could the moon represent. So in this case, it's leaning over a hedge like a farmer. We know that they're walking around in nighttime and it's a cold autumn night. So take your best guess and think, what could that be? To me, I think it could be a familiar face. It could be someone searching for a companion or comfort, maybe in a time of need. I think all of those things could be true. And the moon we know is really bright. It's something it's familiar to all of us, okay? I did not speak but nodded, and round about were the wistful stars. I think stars are also really important, and she also personifies them here, or he, excuse me, by also comparing them to like the town children. Again, familiar faces, right? When we think of that, it's not like a scary image or something. Hopefully not when you read this, right? I don't know. But the idea of the stars being our guide. So I'm going to say here that autumn is a season of change. This person is going through a change in their life. They're looking for something familiar, and they're finding those things along the way as they're dealing with this change coming at them. Excellent. All right, guys, we're going to take a look at one more together. This one is called The Mirror by Sylvia Plath, and I am over our mirror here. Hopefully you can see that. Fantastic. So same thing, we're going to read it once and then look for both form and symbols as we go. I am silver and exact. I have no preconceptions. Whatever I see, I swallow immediately, just as it is, unmisted by love or dislike. I am not cruel, only truthful, the eye of a little god, four-cornered. Most of the time, I meditate on the opposite wall. It is pink with speckles. I have looked at it so long. I think it is part of my heart, but it flickers. Faces and darkness separate us over and over. Now I am a lake. A woman bends over me, searching my reaches for what she really is. Then she turns to those liars, the candles or the moon. I see her back and reflect it faithfully. She rewards me with tears and agitation of hands. I am important to her. She comes and goes. Each morning it is her face that replaces the darkness. In me she has drowned a young girl. In me, an old woman rises towards her day after day like a terrible fish. Okay, this one is really interesting. I got tripped up a little again. There's some really tricky language in here that is purposeful, of course. Let's look first at the form. So I notice again, it's kind of one long thought on this side, and then it changes a little bit on this side. But again, it's following a pretty standard form, nothing too crazy. We have some long lines, some short lines. If we went through, we could look at rhyme scheme and that kind of thing, but ultimately it's just kind of a chunk of a thought and a chunk of a thought. Okay? So this time we're going to go through and we're going to read for any symbols we think we see. I'm going to highlight them first and then maybe talk about what they mean, okay? I am silver and exact. I have no preconceptions. Whatever I see, I swallow immediately, just as it is, unmisted by love or dislike. No symbols yet. I am not cruel, only truthful. The eye of a little god, four-cornered. I'm going to say the eye could be a symbol here. Most of the time, I meditate on the opposite wall. Wall, we could say, is maybe a symbol. Let's put that. It is pink with speckles. I have looked at it so long, I think it is part of my heart. Heart could be a symbol for something. But it flickers. Faces and darkness separate us over and over. I think darkness could be a good symbol. Possibly faces as well. Now I am a lake. Interesting. I'm going to say lake for this. A woman bends over me, searching my reaches for what she really is. I think it's important that she chose a woman here and not something else. Then she turns to those liars, the candles or the moon. Both of those, I think, are symbols. I see her back, and I reflect it faithfully. She rewards me with tears and agitation of the hand. Tears could be a symbol for something. I am important to her. She comes and goes. Each morning it is her face that replaces the darkness, darkness again. In me, she has drowned a young girl, and in me, an old woman rises. Interesting. I think young girl and woman are significant symbols as well. Rises towards her day after day, like a terrible fish. There's a lot to break down in this poem, okay? So we're going to take just a couple seconds here. The eye of a little god, right? We know that eyes can represent more than just sight. It could be insight. So looking deeper into something. The idea of a mirror simply reflecting back. She's already taking it a step further, this author is, by saying we're looking inward, okay? The wall, that's where the structure that holds us up, right? And it holds the mirror up, so it could represent holding you up. The heart here, I think it is part of my heart, but it flickers. So the heart is maybe going into that eye, that anatomy piece, right? It is connected deeper to this person. So it's not just their eye seeing, but it's their heart seeing them. Okay, and then faces I think is important as well with that anatomy piece. Darkness, this could represent so many things. It could be the unknown, it could be death, it could be something you're scared of, right? There's lots of interpretations here, but the darkness separates us. Interesting, okay? Now I am a lake, so we have this idea of nature and something deeper, right? A lake is deep, it's not flat. Well, it is flat, but not, it goes deeper, right? A woman bends over me. I think it's interesting, again, that this person chose a woman and not something else. I think that could maybe represent struggle, identity struggle. Candles or the moon, those both are things that give light, but she calls them liars. So I think in this case, they maybe represent a false perception. Okay? She rewards me with tears. I think that can represent emotion, sadness, struggle. And then here again we have that darkness piece, so it replaces the darkness. So in this case we're seeing the darkness, something that can be worked through. The juxtaposition between a young girl and an old woman I think symbolizes transformation. The fact that you see yourself every day and the mirror is the one tracking that. And then finally, like a terrible fish, this goes back to that idea of the lake. I want to go back to that image, that symbol. So I think here we know that it could be giving life, right? Water could give life. But perhaps it's more being trapped. A fish cannot get out of a lake unless it jumps really high or someone's fishing. I wonder if this image in the mirror is trapped. So the idea of yourself being reflected back but trapped in that idea of time. Okay? So it's a simple reading of the mirror. You could go so much deeper with this, guys, but that's our idea for this lesson. So that's it. That's all we have for this. Your next step is to go into your poetry portfolio and you're going to get working on your TPCast analysis for today. If it's Thursday, come see me in Help Desk if you need anything. If it's Wednesday, I'm sorry I missed you, but I'd be happy to see you on Thursday as well. Guys, let me know what you need, and thanks so much for your deep readings today.